Before we get going here, I'd like to thank Mike Tomlin for some kind words he expressed yesterday in Palm Beach, Florida.
DK is an awesome talent, one that we're familiar with. We've seen him some, but equally, man, he's an awesome guy, and I've enjoyed getting to know him, his relationship with the game, his approach to work.
Coach, I don't know that I've ever agreed with you more. Good morning, everyone. Good Monday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into hockey and or baseball. I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates in the same place that you found this. The NFL annual meeting is underway in Florida, of course, and Tomlin met with the reporters who regularly cover the Steelers, including our own Chris Halleck of DK Pittsburgh Sports. And while he didn't make the headlines that I'm sure somebody somewhere would have expected, not me, specifically regarding the very, very, very uncomfortably fluid quarterback situation, he did have some things to say on the subject, albeit in pieces and far from definitive. Of his recent meeting with Aaron Rodgers on the South Side, he had this to say.
Man, and it was a really good day. Specifically, he and I obviously have known of each other for some time, and so it was really good to, spend some time together, man, and get to know each other more intimately. But it is free agency. It is a process. I have nothing of any more significance to add other than that.
And when asked if Mason Rudolph could become the Steelers' starting quarterback, he had this to say.
I think that's why we reacquired him, man. We like Mason Rudolph, but, that's no secret.
Okay, now those don't seem to really mesh well, those two remarks, because beginning with what he said about Rodgers, it sounds like, one of those things that everybody seems to suspect, which is that he gets all fanboy around these types of players. That's what that sounded like. Even if that's not what he meant, that does nothing to dispel that notion. And for that matter, neither was it dispelled by multiple other similar questions asking if he'd ever discussed any sort of deadline for Rodgers to give the Steelers his decision. And I mean, nothing at all. Zero. At one point, he did acknowledge that the draft is coming up in less than a month, and the Steelers always like to have all their figurative ducks in a row before the draft, but he wouldn't even go there, which is so just is all I have on that. Now, as far as suggesting that the reason that the Steelers brought Mason back is that they intended to make him the starter. I think, this is a quote again, I think that's why we acquired him, man. We like Mason Rudolph, but that's no secret. Okay, it's no secret, but neither is it a secret that at every available opportunity over the years, he's been cast aside. Even when he's won training camp competitions, even when he was winning those games for you near the end of the season, it was all about the hot hand or whatever. And yet, you try to find a way to level that assessment with, well, okay, Tomlin is still the head coach, and Tomlin absolutely had to have been part of the decision to bring Mason back. He was also asked about possibly drafting a quarterback, some of the other free agents that they've looked at. No names came up, obviously. How nothing about this ongoing Rodgers process, which is what he kept calling it, has hindered management in any way from signing other players that they'd like to sign. And anyway, here's what I know, and I do mean know. They really are waiting on Rodgers. They really are prepared to wait a long time to get an answer. They really are, or at least he really is, meaning Tomlin, sold on the concept that he can be the difference maker in the 2025 NFL season. And yes, on top of all of that, they really are prepared to enter that season with Mason at quarterback if this doesn't work out. The next mention that I hear from anyone about other options, meaning other existing NFL options to be the starter, will be the first. And do I really have to elaborate on this anymore? I guess if you're new, I don't like it. I feel it puts the Steelers in a bind, an unnecessary bind, an embarrassing bind to an extent, and that it really can't be limitless. Not just for the obvious reason that no quarterback who's going to turn 42 this fall is worth it, but because at some point or other, not for people like me and you, but for their own process, the real process of making the football team better, of making the offense better, that gets going that much earlier in everyone's minds and everyone's commitment levels. Even if it's just a mental commitment level, you know who the quarterback is. When we come back, J1Q. Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George is a personal injury law firm in Western Pennsylvania that represents injured people in automobile accidents, workers' compensation cases, and medical malpractice claims. The attorneys at Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George pride themselves in doing what they say they're going to do. It's important to them that when they make you a promise, they keep that promise. And this law firm has been keeping promises for over 80 years. Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George has been AV rated. That's the highest rating a law firm can receive for legal ability and ethics. And the lawyers at the firm have been designated super lawyers, that's a real thing, for over 15 years. Rare combination there. Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George has offices in Cranberry, Newcastle, Beaver Falls, Butler, and Elwood City. Learn more about them at lgkg.com or by calling 888-842-5454. Again, that's 888-842-5454. Today's J1Q comes from Mike, who says, DK, for some time now, all of my time and attention is related to sports has been on the Penguins. I'll admit, I'm a hockey fan first, but the Steelers and the Pirates give me no reason to be proud. It's not just being bad. It's the incompetence from management that's so off-putting. I would have never thought that the Steelers would become so unlikable in this way. Mike, I'm not going to have much of a response to whatever your choices are as a fan, whether it's related to your favorite sport, your favorite team, or whatever. In our city, and especially among the younger generation, the Penguins are very, very popular. I experienced that yet again yesterday with an amazing crowd at PPG Paints Arena for that 1-0 win over Ottawa, with a certain living legend scoring that lone goal. I get that. I also get that there's a significant gap, in my estimation, and I cover all three teams, in the way the Penguins are being run with a very real plan, both in concept and in execution to date, for how they're going to try to build things up in Sidney Crosby's final handful of years, in addition to keeping the franchise healthy once he does ultimately retire. The Steelers have virtues. Mike Tomlin has virtues. They do, between the two, the Steelers and Tomlin, if you can ever find it fair to separate those entities, have things that continue to bring value to this football operation. I don't ever claim otherwise. But the part where I've been lost, specifically by the head coach, is that there's never anything that's future-based. There's never anything that says, hey, listen, we could really, really set ourselves up for something good in 2026 or 2027 if we did X or if we did Y. They don't do that because he doesn't do that, because he doesn't even think like that. One of the questions he was asked yesterday had to do with how the Steelers would benefit from learning about things that they were missing in their quarterback play in the 2024 season. Pretty fair question, fresh off of that season and fresh off of losing both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. And his response, and I tell you about this all the time, is that he refuses to connect seasons. Every season is its own quote-unquote journey. I'm not here to talk about the past. We're looking ahead. Well, no, respectfully, you're not looking ahead if you're not looking at the past. Because the past is what shows you what should be ahead if you learn from the things that you do well and the things that you do poorly. What he does is he has one set of meetings in January. He has one press conference in January. And then he picks up his Etch-a-Sketch and shakes it until there's nothing left on the screen, and he starts completely over. Well, we still need a quarterback, so what year do we need him for? Well, we need him for 2025. All right, let's go get the 42-year-old guy. Well, hang on, coach. What if we put this multifaceted effort into adding this and that and this and that and this and that, and while you're talking to him, he's sitting there with starry eyes looking at an Aaron Rodgers poster? That's not a problem, my friends. That's the problem. And I think you brought the Pirates into this too. Leave the Pirates out of this. Totally separate catastrophe. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Steelers. Be back with another one of these tomorrow. And remember, today, we will have a double shot video live at 4 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and really on pretty much every platform everywhere.